Okay. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. The quorum has been established. And then can I get a motion to approve the agenda as it currently sits?
This is Melissa. Did anybody move for the agenda? I'm not hearing anything.
Not yet.
Okay.
Melissa, on my screen, it says that my mic has been disabled and I can no longer unmute, but it looked like I could unmute. So maybe that's what's going on with others, but I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
And do I have a second?
Jacob with Transit, I second.
Fantastic. So I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as it currently sits. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, seeing or hearing no opposition, the agenda is approved as it currently sits. All right, so then we will go on to the approval of the minutes from the June 25th meeting. So I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Jacob with Transit, so moved.
Thank you, Jacob. Do I have a second to approve the minutes from June 25th?
I second it. Did you hear me?
Thank you, Val. Thanks, Val. I appreciate that. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the June 25th meeting as they currently sit. All those in favor say aye.
That's no aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing nor hearing no opposition to the approval of the minutes for the June 25th meeting, so moved. All right, on to public comments and presentations.
So, Madam Chair, I can jump in. I'll ask anyone who is not a committee member to please use the raise hand function at this time to let us know that they'd like to provide public comment. In the meantime, I'll just let the committee know that we did not receive any requests for public comment and we did not receive any written public comment that we would have distributed to the committee before this meeting. I see no hands raised, so I think, Madam Chair, we can proceed to the next item at your discretion.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do you have any action items?
We do not.
Okay, and any membership appointments?
We do not.
Okay. Community guest and provider presentations.
And I don't.
We have a provider. Well, it's kind of it's on number 8, but I'll go ahead and introduce Anne with Casta. We're gonna switch B to A real quick. But Anne with Casta is joining us here today. She's the executive director, and there has been a lot of Medicaid changes to the NEMT program, and I've just asked her to come today and share some of those changes that she is hearing, and also give any insight into how the providers on the call can advocate in certain areas that we know are going to be impactful in a non-positive way. So, Anne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. I'm with the Colorado Association Association of Transit Agencies, and we have, some of you may have been around for 5 years or more, others may not, but what we're finding is a lot of people have not been in their positions for the last 5 years, and what happened 5 years ago is somewhat similar to what's happening today. And so at that point, HICPUF moved forward with a statewide brokerage solution for non-emergent medical transportation. And it caused a lot of challenges for the riders as well as public transit and EMT providers. It's a complicated program in the sense that it's run by HICPUF, and they're not transportation experts. And so they don't have as good of a feel for the impacts that the changes they make to the program are going to have on the providers. And the impacts on the providers impact the riders as well. So we are taking a lot of information from the last time that we went to a statewide brokerage, which was only in place for 1 year because it did not go well, and kind of making sure that it's a cautionary tale that we use moving forward to determine whether or not we want to go to a statewide brokerage. There's still discussion about whether that's necessary or not. And then also, if that is the direction we go, we really need to make sure we know what we're getting into and maybe do some things to mitigate some of the issues that happened last time. Did you have a question?
Yes. Hi, Anne. So I'm Melissa. I work with Laura at the Pikes Peak Area Council of Government. Actually, I'm the note taker for the Mobility Coordinating Committee. And so 5 years ago, you said you went to a non-brokered transit contract. And I know other people on here are already going to know this thing, but I kind of missed the detail there of 5 years ago, you went to a one broker or you went to non-brokered. Can you just restate that again for me, please?
Yep. I know it's complicated. 5 years ago, we went from kind of this dispersed system that we currently have now, where there's a number of regions that have taken lead on NEMT provision, or in some areas, especially rural areas of our state, there's only maybe one provider that can provide NEMT to that area. And we went to a statewide brokerage, and the statewide brokerage caused a lot of troubles. And within the year, we were able to make it so they did not renew the contract to do any future years of statewide brokerage. Now, because of the fraud that came out, did that answer your question? Did that clarify it for you?
Yes, thanks.
Great. Now, because of the fraud that was discovered last winter, I think is when the article came out in the Denver Post, there's been a lot of concerns, and HICPUF has obviously been trying to figure out how to provide a little bit more oversight and better oversight so that they don't get in a position where people are defrauding the state government with NEMT rides. So to that end, that is why they're discussing a statewide brokerage again, with this idea that if there's oversight at the state level rather than regionally, that there will be better security, that these funds are being used for exactly what they're expected to be used for. So they're doing that. And it's been a two-pronged process. The first prong they've done is made everyone recertify or recredential. And the new recredentialing process has come out over the past summer. They've done it in stages. This last stage, they were trying to get done in July. And it turns out that for whatever reason, this last group had a lot of public transit providers that also provide NEMT in it. And we were finding that not only was there a lot of almost duplication with what public transit providers had to provide for CDOT, as a sub-grantee. So they had similar vehicle inspections, for instance, but the vehicle inspection they did for CDOT did not count for NEMT. Same way, they had a similar drug program, but not quite the same. And so now these public transit agencies that are providing NEMT have 2 drug programs in place that they have to meet in order to get the credentialing from HCPUF, but also maintain their good standing with CDOT if they're a CDOT grantee. So as you can see, it was a complicated process. There was some lack of communication. A number of agencies didn't realize they were supposed to go through this process. They didn't get the materials. So it was not very smooth, which is how CASTA got into the mix. So the other trouble, I think, in this realm is that we have public transit agencies that provide a lot of NEMT rides in rural parts of the state, but we also have a number of private entities that do not have grants through CDOT or something, so they're not overseen or they don't have that sort of oversight from CDOT. So HCPUF is trying to deal with a lot of different folks and trying to streamline them in the same way, but it's challenging for transit agencies because they're having to do almost duplicate work, but it's not close enough that they don't have to do it twice. So agencies are doing the work twice to get recredentialed. This is going to be a yearly thing. One of the things CASTA is hoping to do is put together some sort of waiver for public transit entities that are getting funding from CDOT and get CDOT oversight in hopes that some of this duplicative sort of requirements will not be required next year when they go through recredentialing again. Through this process of trying to figure out recredentialing and what documentation, worked for what credential that they needed to provide, which was done by a non-provider entity. And so they didn't always know what they were asking for, which is what came clear after we had a webinar about it. So there's a lot of confusion about what entities need to provide and what they're expecting on the HCPUF side. This sounds really, I'm sorry, I'm hoping that this is linear enough that you can follow, but feel free to ask me questions. During this process of trying to get everybody recredentialed, we found out that now the HCPUF is looking towards a statewide brokerage again. And this time around, we were able to, they extended their stakeholder process by a week in order to allow providers to have a stakeholder meeting. And that meeting happened last Monday. And there was a lot of really good discussion, but a lot of concerns, like I said, brought up from the last time around. And some of the concerns from the last time around are pretty significant in the sense that because you have a call center, a statewide call center, but it's not necessarily folks from Colorado that are answering the calls. The call center, I think one was in Nebraska and one was on the West Coast. They didn't necessarily know when they were connecting a person with a ride that was 100 miles away versus a ride that was 200 miles away. And so it added a lot of deadhead miles to different rides. Also, there were it was really hard to get your agency's information updated in their database. And so they'd assign rides to people over the weekend, and then that entity wasn't open during the weekend, and there wasn't great communication to say, oh no, we need to get you a different ride, and people missed appointments. One notable person missed surgery because they didn't get to the hospital in time because their ride didn't show up. So there's a lot of challenges with that, as well as 30 to 60-minute wait times for people to schedule rides. And so that means if your ride didn't come to pick you up, you're likely going to miss your appointment. If you're at your appointment and the group picking you up didn't show up, you had to call to the call center and then wait online, wait for 30 to 60 minutes to try to coordinate some way to get back home. So it was not easy for the riders. And in rural Colorado, I think there was even more challenges where folks who wanted a ride were not able to choose their local NEMT provider. And so they were a little confused about who was going to pick them up, and they didn't feel safe. And so some people just ended up not going to appointments because they couldn't ride with the trusted entity from town. It was really messy and kind of chaotic for the rider, from the rider perspective, because they weren't getting the trusted sort of folks. And then on the transit agency side, this is a paid service. And so many public transit agencies use this as earned income to draw down additional federal funds where, oftentimes they can use these funds. They draw down 5310, which is general public transit rural operating funds. And then now they can provide rides for often the same folks, but to get to nutrition sites, get to haircuts, do shopping, that kind of thing. And so it's an important way to kind of round out that mobility access of folks in your community. And so because the rides were being allocated to such different places, a lot of transit agencies lost thousands of dollars a month, which is a pretty big deal when you're at a smaller agency, cash flow wise, as well as being able to draw down federal funds. So CASTA is working to share, today I'm going to share comments with HitPuff around some of I collected comments from a lot of public transit providers around the issues we experienced 5 years ago, as well as concerns they have now around moving towards a statewide brokerage. And so we're at that stage. And then once they close the kind of stakeholder portion of their process with the statewide brokerage, like I said earlier, I'm going to start working on figuring out how to do waivers for local transit agencies so that they are not doing duplicative work, like drug testing, having 2 drug testing programs and that kind of thing, because it's really hard to maintain 2 different programs that are slightly different at the same time. And it takes a lot of money, frankly, to make all that stuff happen twice. Anything else you wanted me to chat about, Laura, or any questions about that?
No, I think that was a great update. And I know that we have, I'm trying to see if some people joined a little later. We have Sagan on the call today from Envita, and I think it would be interesting, Sagan, for you to, if you can, kind of talk through how this is potentially impacting your organization. You're on mute, Sagan. I'm trying to see if we have any other NEMT providers on the call. Let's see.
This is Sean from Good Wheels.
Oh, hey, Sean.
Hey,
sorry, I can't see everybody.
No, you're fine. I came in a few minutes late anyway, so.
That's okay.
Thank you, Ann, for that update. I was following along and not feeling so great as I was following along. So what's your question one more time?
Oh, I was just asking any of the NEMT providers that are in the virtual room, if you could touch on how this is impacting your organization.
Well, the impact has been tremendous. The amount that just the amount of labor hours that we've had to put in to coordinate the logistics of getting every single driver. We have 25 drivers, so we have to get each and every one of those re-credentialed in 14 different ways. 4 of those being off-site. So it's been quite a challenge. So not only are we absorbing the costs of all the re-credentialing certificates or whatever that looks like, but we're also paying the labor hours for that, and trying to stay in operation at the same time. So I could go on and on and on and on. This has really been crazy, a shock to me. I wasn't around for when this happened last time, and to hear that it happened before and that we're here again with the same folks that were operating this last time was really astonishing to me. Why we would give, or why we'd even offer something like this to an F student. I don't know. If I'm not mistaken, they have an F rating with the Better Business Bureau, and I don't know. I can go on and on, but that's kind of where we're at. We're getting through it. Granted, we are a larger operation. We do have capital resources. A lot of providers out there don't. We're well aware of that. So all the more reason for us to get this done so we can still provide.
Thanks for sharing. Sagan, I'm not sure if you can unmute. We did have the chat closed. Jared just opened the chat. So I'm not sure if Sagan's having issues unmuting. Yeah, so I'll just make a couple of comments. I think, in terms of advocacy efforts for this group, I know that Silver Key has expressed some interest in working with Medicaid in the past. And so I think, one of the challenges that we have is this thing blew up so quickly when they reopened it from the previous state brokerage, that ultimately some of the stronger agencies that this would better sit with were unable to come to the table quickly enough to be able to get on the roll of being able to provide NEMT rides. And so I think some of the advocacy efforts here is, as Anne mentioned, was we're really, coming to the table to talk about how transit agencies are currently operating, what regulations that you currently have to follow, and see how we can come to a conclusion or a come to a conclusion of how we can integrate programs or program requirements so that there's not this added burden on agencies that have been doing the right thing for a long time. So, as Anne mentioned, I think this, some of the things that they're implementing are positives in terms of ensuring NEMT providers meet certain standards where it was just kind of all willy-nilly in the past. But ultimately, there's still that disconnect between true transit agencies and the state, and any state and NEMT program requirements. So I am concerned about the state brokerage reforming. I know that agencies after IntelliRide went away, they had to, revamp and bring back a lot of administrative staff back into the fold to take on the admin pieces around NEMT, and now that's going to be changing again. And so that's quite the fluctuation between operations for folks that have been providing rides for quite some time. So, and I really appreciate you coming and talking to us today. I think that if we can continue to get updates from you, that would be great. I know most of the folks on the call probably subscribe to Casta's updates. And if you do not, I highly suggest you subscribing to those emails that she sends out pretty regularly. So,
Laura, I just want to jump in before we let Ann go. Sean has his hand raised.
okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very
Yeah.
much. I just wanted to touch on credentialing versus the brokerage because we're talking about
Yeah.
two things in my mind. The
Yeah.
credentialing, we are 100% behind this, doing this, because this is only
Yeah.
going to make us better, our drivers better, and our clients safer. So we're actually 100% on that. The concerning issue is the brokerage, and I think I'm not alone when I say that. I was in the corridor with our CEO, and they're asking me what's going on, and I had to tell them that there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and here I am telling the people that are going to invest in what we do, we're looking at another $1 million investment here in January for more vehicles. So how does that look? And so the brokerage is the concern. The credentialing, that's awesome. I think that's great because I know what was out there. And that's where I'm coming from. So I just wanted to make that real clear. At Good Wheels, we're all about that credentialing, and I'm sure a lot of us are. It's the brokerage that could knock us right out of business. So
yeah, I think the big issue though is for those agencies that are receiving FTA funds, they are already doing much of the credentialing process that is very similar to what NEMT is now requiring. And so I know you guys, Goodwill does not receive any FTA funds for operating. And so it's a little bit different story for you guys than it is for an agency like Envita, who is already already has stringent requirements under FTA that are very similar. So it's doubling their work. I agree. I'm hoping that this weeds out the credentialing piece of it, weeds out a lot of the NEMT providers that weren't really doing much due diligence on their part when it comes to the vehicles and the people that they were hiring and drug testing and that kind of thing. But the frustration is that we have transit agencies that have to adhere to the Federal Transit Administration rules, and yet we have another state-ran program that is adopting rules that don't necessarily fully align with the FTA rules. So I appreciate your comment. I think it's a little bit different situation for you guys because you aren't FTA recipients.
But I think, Laura, what's absolutely true about what Sean said is that it's a two-pronged problem.
Yeah.
The credentialing for some folks is really appropriate. It's very duplicative for transit agencies, but what did happen is a lot of disruption in service because folks weren't assigned to the agencies, the organizations that had always provided their service. And so they didn't recognize the vehicles, or the vehicles had 100-mile deadhead each way because they weren't assigning the closest entity to take care of it. And so that also, whether you're using that earned income to keep your organization afloat or to draw down federal funding, it's really disruptive to the to the entire system if you start messing with who's assigned where and not understanding the connections that are already in place and really valuable to the riders as
Yeah.
well as the organizations that are in place to really serve them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also put my email address in the chat, and if you're interested in signing up for our NEMT email list, I'm not republicizing necessarily stuff that I get from HICPUF, but I am coming at it more of an advocate sort of perspective. So if you want to kind of get that aspect too, I'm not saying I'm going to replace HICPUF emails, just in addition. So don't get your hopes up for that. But feel free to let me know if you want to join our list.
Great. Thanks, Anne. Really appreciate you coming and talking today. And thanks those who chimed in. Sagan actually put something in the chat here. She said that not much more to share than what Sean did with the group. She's going to figure out, how that's actually going to be impacting their operations. And I see Ronnie, you can speak up if you want to. I know this affects you guys as well. I didn't see that you were on the call, but I know that this is really impacting a couple of the agencies on this call and also just everybody's clients, because there's quite a bit of overlap between agencies that do NEMT rides and don't do NEMT rides. So it's always nice for all the agencies to kind of understand what's going on at the state level, because we're all points of contact for the clients that we serve. So awesome. Well, let's move along in our agenda. Just going to give a couple updates on the transit plans. Jacob's on the call too. We did receive an initial draft of the specialized transit plan. We had quite a bit of feedback on that plan to give to the consultants. I have asked, and I'm still waiting from some of you guys, the number of denied rides that you had last year. Really looking at, I believe I requested April 1st of 2023 to March 30th of 2024. If you haven't sent me those denied rides, I really would appreciate it. That would be very helpful for us to share with the consultants to sort of give a picture within that plan with the added need is in our community that we have the pulse on. So please send that to me by the end of this week. I would appreciate that. We are hopefully receiving an updated draft of the specialized transit plan in the next week or so. And so I have asked the group to help us update some of the agency profiles that are in that plan. So I thank everybody who sent me updates on their agencies information so that we have the most up-to-date information on what your agencies do, who you serve, hours of operation, and that kind of thing. Jacob, do you want to talk about the transit plan briefly?
Sure. Yeah, we're in a pretty much similar boat between the two different plans in terms of where we're at. We review process for the first draft of the regional transit plan. We're anticipating getting our information back to the consultant on the 31st of this month. So we'll get them the feedback, and then we'll get another draft of that and kind of work our way through. The importance of that plan is there's several chapters, but there's one called the vision, and that really is the focus and focal point for the next 25 years of where we're looking to kind of push transit into the future and kind of what it could look like. And that has kind of a spill down effect, right? Because our paratransit is impacted by our fixed route, which is kind of the overall focus of that regional transit plan. Paratransit is impacted by a fixed route, and then the human service providers, particularly as it relates to the 5310 program, are impacted from the decisions of each of those. So they kind of all work together in this. I don't look at the specialized as being, while it's a standalone plan, it has definitely repercussions in there as to what's going to the regional transit plan. So we're making sure all those are in sync, making sure that they flow right together, and that the vision between both that specialized and the regional transit plan is what is best for the region, and what we're hearing from you guys, what we're hearing from the public, what we're hearing from other folks in the region. So yep, so that one pretty much, I think it's where we were at last time. We're still in that review process. So should be hopefully getting a final touch within, I would assume, or so within about the next month, maybe a little more, a month or so, and then working its way through PPACGs or the different boards. So I think that's it.
Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate that. Anything else? Any questions on the transit plans, where we are in the process? Great. I'm gonna go down to C, and Melissa can hop in on this too a little bit. But we actually have a AmeriCorps Vista joining PPACG early or mid-August. And we've hired this AmeriCorps Vista to help us work with Mountain Metro and all of our agencies on developing a travel training program for older adults and individuals with disabilities in particular. And it's a different kind of look at a travel training program than what's typically been provided in our area through MMT. It's really looking at the full spectrum of transit and how people can access the transportation needed for their unique rides. So we've heard from the specialized transit plan, public engagement, as well as when we did the needs assessment, that people just really struggle with navigating the system in general, from the accessing programs of the HSPs and NEMT, the fixed route system, and Metro mobility, even in our rural communities, figuring out what transportation options are available to them there. So it's basically bringing that mobility guide to life, and understanding how to their focus will not be on direct service of working directly with clients, but helping develop a program for this area, so that PPACG and your agencies as well have a resource to train volunteers to help provide travel training to older adults and individuals with disabilities. So Melissa, do you have anything to add with that? Jacob, I was supposed to meet with you and Lan last week, and y'all had the transit apocalypse with the Microsoft issue. So we're going to touch base again this week.
I don't think I have anything else to add, so I'm just glad we're getting it in front of everybody so folks know that this is going to be up and coming in a couple of weeks, and we'll have a person for a year. So, and then, yeah, so glad to get that out in front.
Yep.
So question, Laura, you mentioned, and maybe we can just, talk off
Yep.
at some point, but you mentioned for people with disabilities and seniors, is it specifically focusing on that group, or is it kind of the holistic group? Because we do have a travel training program that's geared for everybody. We have a
Yep.
senior ambassador program, which we're trying to get back up and running again. And then we have our people with disability travel training through Metro Mobility.
Yep.
So I was wondering between all those programs where this would fit.
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, this was kind of the conversation we were going to have last week. So it is pretty much geared right now towards seniors and individuals with disabilities. So really coordinating with you guys is what we want to do. I know that the Senior Ambassador Program is something that PPACG can help you guys out with, and kind of recruiting volunteers and coordinating that program. But also it's more holistic, in a sense of not just what Mountain Metro provides, but what all of our providers provide. And so definitely am going to talk to you and Lan offline, about how that may work with what y'all are currently doing, but also looking at this other perspective of uh, sort of the broader picture of providing travel training services. And it's not looking at just traditional travel training where you're showing people bus stops and that kind of thing, and how to ride the bus or how to access paratransit services, but how do you access the full cafeteria menu of services in our area?
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Melissa raised her hand.
Yeah, I just want to kind of add to that. So I think because Jacob, I have had very intimate experiences with the Senior Ambassador Program. A woman friend of mine was a volunteer with the program for a number of years. And so just a really great program for people to get exposed and feel much more comfortable riding public transit, and I do mean the public transit, the fixed route kind of work. And so the mobility plan, this mobility or this travel training program, as Laura kind of talked about, is more, that more holistic approach where now too, it's super important for older adults, and we just had a gentleman who can't read or write. How do they, even access things on their phones and apps, and be able to interface that way, and know when to call in Vita versus when to ride a different form of transportation. And so really having these volunteers be really well versed in kind of much more advanced kind of needs that some of these older adults and the people with disabilities might have. And so that we really are looking at the whole entire transit system. And, who knows, maybe there will be an older adult or a person with disabilities who can ride a scooter to get to the fixed route, but just have no idea how to even begin to do that. And we would, there'd be a travel training program to get them connected to those resources. So again, looking forward to you guys chatting more about it, since now Laura's leaving us sooner rather than later, and figuring it all out. So.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Along those lines, I'm trying to help Melissa sort of plan out the initial orientation for the AmeriCorps Vista. And so would like to reach out to this group to identify some opportunities for that Vista to do sort of an operation slash ride along with your agency, so that they understand a little bit more about how things work, from sort of the dispatching piece to all the way through to the interfacing directly with the riders. So would love the opportunity for that Vista to shadow your organization for a few days. And so we'll be reaching out to you guys to set those opportunities up in the near future. So I know some of y'all that we've talked to have already said, yeah, sure, we would love that. So appreciate those who have already expressed some interest in that. All right. Well, moving along to D, I am leaving PPACG, and it's probably the worst time ever I could leave for PPACG because of all the things going on. But yeah, it's very much so bittersweet. I am moving to Leadville to work for Lake County, and just really appreciate this group who has been keeping the wheels literally rolling over the past 4 years. Things are, I mean, we've overcome a pandemic together. It's just been really, really great. And I appreciate, I don't know if Anne's still on the call. I really appreciate Anne for her guidance over the years of understanding transit. I knew nothing about transit when I first started my job, and you guys have educated me greatly over the past 4 years. So I really appreciate everybody on this call, and I'm going to be a phone call or email away, so I'll share with the group my new contact information. I'm sure I'll still be seeing you guys. I'm actually going to be the Director of Human Services up in Lake County, so staying in the same business for sure, just a different hat. And yeah, it's definitely bittersweet. My last day is August 15th. It seems to be coming faster and faster. So I am furiously trying to wrap up things well on my end, so that the new me, has a good step forward. I will be accessible to that new person, and they should be posting that position here shortly in the next week or so. But yeah, that's kind of my news. My husband and I were moving to the mountains, so gonna be a different world for us, going from a county of like 740,000 people to a county of 7,400 people. But we're excited, but also sad to leave so many of you and our friends here. Yeah.
We will miss you a lot. So,
Well,
you will definitely get some more contact information and stay connected. Because you've been absolutely amazing, and I can't thank you enough for all of the help that you've generously offered me as I learned all of these pieces.
well, thanks, Deanna. That brings up one other thing. We have been tossing around the past few MCCs of doing a social gathering for this group and your staff that are connected to transit. And so PPACG's facilities have been closed and will be closed probably through mid-September at this point. And so looking to this group to kind of identify a couple of days that may be good for us to do maybe a after work happy hour, just to connect with each other on a social level over the next few weeks. And I would love to be able to see people in person to say goodbye. So if there are a few days that work well, or days of the week that work well for your agencies, feel free to state that now, or shoot me and Melissa an email after this. All right. I'll send out a doodle poll. I keep saying I'm going to do that, but I keep forgetting. So I'll put that on my list for today and try to get that out to you guys. I think maybe one of we'll kind of think through a good centralized place for us to gather. And like I said, love to see folks before I leave. So, all right, that's all I have.
All right. I realized that I was remiss in doing introductions when we started off the meeting. So in lieu of that, we'll do information slash here's who's in a virtual room. So who would like to kick us off? Okay. Anybody have any information, any upcoming events, any fun and exciting things that they'd like to share with the group?
I'll put this out there. I don't know if it's quite hit out the media or anything yet. It should be here shortly. We started posting information about our fall service change. So that just started going up and out yesterday. There's gonna be some trickling information, and over the course of today, I imagine it'll be all well known. So yeah, nothing super major coming up for the fall, making a few adjustments to some routes in terms of the on-time performance and connection for two particular routes. And then we are looking, we propose for our route 18, 19, and 39, each of those routes to increase the weekday evening level to match the rest of the system. Right now, those, between the three of them, the route 19 and 39 end an hour before the rest of our other routes, and the route 18 ends about 3 hours before. So we're looking to streamline that and make it consistent across the system. That's probably the biggest change, and the upcoming fall service change. And the increase in hours is not really expected to require any more additional drivers. So we've had some challenges at times with having to do temporary reduction in service because either driver or vehicle shortage. This doesn't require any other vehicles, and the way that our scheduling works with the drivers, it doesn't really require the addition of any other drivers to accomplish this. So it should work within the current system, just moving hours around. So it's a small change. We had hoped for some bigger ones this fall, but in light of current circumstances with vehicles and drivers, we need to hold off, and hopefully next spring it'll be a bigger one, but we'll see where things are then. So that's kind of my update.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anyone else have any updates? Okie dokie. Seeing or hearing no other additional updates. Any items for the next meeting?
If there's any like major developments in the Medicaid transition, I will connect our executive team with Anne, so that it may be worth her coming back next meeting. Also, we will have a good, clean draft of the specialized transit plan by then. So I'd like to figure out a way to get information to you guys for us to discuss some of that prior to it going to our larger committees for approval. So I'll try to work out a plan for that for next meeting. I will not be here, but we'll try to have some discussion around that.
Okay. Anything else for the next meeting? Okie dokie. And seeing or hearing no additions to the next meeting, we will move on to adjournment. So it is 10:26 over there in lovely Colorado. It is 12:26. So I wish you all well, and I look forward to seeing you all soon in person to say farewell to Laura and to just celebrate and gather. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next month. Thanks. Bye-bye.